I don't want to pry into her personal situation too much, but she apparently has some health issues. Can you tell us how she's doing?
Well, she had cancer before, so a third of one of her lungs was removed. And so that compromises her in the first place. And she's got a persistent cough due to the fact that, the amount of mold that's in the air in that particular facility. But the worst part of it is this, in the men's prisons, the real monsters are put in maximum security. And then you've got medium security for those that are kind of in between. And then you've got minimum security for white collar crime and so on. In the women's prisons, they do have some separation in the units, but the prisons are for everybody. And so they put her not just in a prison that's the equivalent of a maximum security, but they put her in the units that are maximum security. So she's in with people that could take her life at any time. Oh. And the worst part is for the women that attacked her, like this woman that attacked her in the video. I mean, yes, she ended up pushing the woman away, but she was attacked in the beginning. So she ends up getting early release. She gets a reward for what she did. So now the women in this violent milieu know that if they, God forbid what they may know or not know, but they're incentivized to cause harm. And I mean, let me tell you this. If I get the appointment of Attorney General without being crazy, without, asking the president to send the army in or something crazy, I'm telling you, I'll get around.
That will be interesting. Well, I saw conflicting reports on whether or not she was put into solitary confinement as a result of that fight. It was first I saw it was reported, but then in that clip we showed before, the prison denied it. It seems like something that's verifiable whether or not it happened. What's the story on that?
They don't call it solitary confinement.
Protective custody.
Yeah, they call it protective custody, but it's solitary confinement.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
It's calling a dog a canine.
Yeah, there's no dog here. It's just my canine.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's it. I'm going to use that example if I may.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
To all units, proceed to your post assignments. All units, proceed to your post assignments.
That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast.
Yeah, baby. It's episode 33 of Probable Cause on June 2nd, 2026. Jeff Norman and the FBI whistleblower, Greg Dillon, with you. And we are pleased as punch about that. I bet you were pleased as punch that you delivered a line that so amused the legendary lawyer Peter Tickton that he said he wants to use it.
I was impressed and flattered. And thank you for showing that clip.
Well, it was apropos, and you deserve some credit, and we all deserve to celebrate. Tina Peters was a woman who certainly did not deserve to sit in prison for 9 years. And when we had Peter on, you remember we were talking about how cruel the judge was. Remember, Peter, has a lot of experience going to trials as a lawyer and hearing what happens when people are sentenced. And you worked as a court officer, so you've seen that too. But the way this guy talked to Tina Peters was just unnecessary. Let's take a look at that again, the judge in Tina Peters' trial.
You are no hero, you abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. Your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen.
How about give her a year or two and knock it off with all the insults?
Jeff, his language is so partisan and so overtly political that I don't understand why he thought it was appropriate from the bench.
I guess that's the political climate in Colorado.
Apparently. Yeah.
Now they've censured the governor for commuting her sentence. I guess we should just briefly recap what this is about. Tina Purters was an election official, and she was among those who thought that perhaps the election was rigged, the presidential election, and she allowed some outsider in to examine the computer equipment, and that was essentially what she got sent to prison for 9 years. Is that about right, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, but the thing is, I noticed even the newspapers labeled her as an election denier, and
Oh, absolutely. They are so. It's the same thing as with the judge. It's just unusually hostile.
Questioning the results of an election that doesn't define you as an election denier. Just like some people are skeptical about climate change, you're a climate denier. Well, if you have some doubt or some skepticism, it doesn't necessarily make you a denier. That's going above and beyond when you label the person that way.
Yeah, it's just not allowed. And it's so obvious how certain segments of society and the media have taken this position. And like you said, they're calling her election denier. They're referring to as the disgraced election official, that kind of language just over and over again, which you can just report what the issue was without saying that. It's another thing if it's an op-ed, but this is what they do in straight news, supposedly straight news stuff.
In the overuse of adjectives to disparage or demean someone is just not good reporting. It's not good journalism.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I have a sound clip ready to go. So if you ever annoy me in any way, Greg, you're going to hear this.
You are no hero. You abused your position, and you're a charlatan.
All right. So just be on your best behavior, because I've got that ready to go.
That has a very Karen scolding tone to it.
Yes, I know. He must be a lot of fun at parties, that guy. Huh?
Oh, yeah. He's a real cut up, this guy.
Yeah. So the other thing that we talked about, and you heard Peter Tickton, Tina Peters' attorney, refer to that in the opening, is her poor health and the conditions in prison. And that's always been something that bothers me is, you don't want to make prison too comfy, obviously. Otherwise, people will just look at it as free housing, free meals, free medical care, and so forth. But on the other hand, you don't want to make it inhumane. And for those of you who tend to lean towards wanting to be harsh on crime, think of it this way. These people are going to return to society at a certain point. You don't want them to be completely ruined. You want them to be able to function when they come back, or else they're just going to go right back to a life of crime.
Correct.
And in a way, you can't blame them if you're going to just ruin them and make them like unfit to even function.
Yeah. And the thing is with in her case in particular, because of her compromised health and her age, I just finished reading a book recently, and it was about a gentleman who's serving a murder conviction, and he became a journalist. But he did a lot of research and studies on prison life and prison conditions, and he said that the average prisoner ages 2 years for every year that we would age. So, their life expectancy or their lifespan gets reduced significantly. Again, it doesn't necessarily break my heart, but in this particular instance, due to her age and her health, it seemed like that sentence was just way out of line.
Way out of line. And Tina herself was interviewed by Steve Bannon yesterday, just a short time after she was released. And she said she's very interested in being some kind of prison reform activist now that she has seen what goes on in there. So that would be a useful thing to come out of this. Doesn't justify it, of course, but it would be one positive thing to come out of it. I've heard other people, actually people I know who have been to prison, as well as people I don't know, have had the same sort of reaction that, wow, I didn't realize it was that bad, and now I want to do something about it. I don't know if they actually did, but sort of like when you watch a marathon. You ever go to the New York City Marathon? Very exciting.
Yeah.
And there, when I'm watching, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to start running. That's like that day. And then 2 days later, history, So
Well,
hopefully
when you see the condition of the people when they finally cross the finish line, and you realize it's taken a significant toll on their body that day, that's not really an incentive.
Yeah, that's another point. That's kind of like maybe even worse than a Colorado prison.
Possibly.
in a way. Well, anyway, I like to think that our interview with Peter Tickton contributed a little bit to her release, because there's nothing more powerful than public opinion, and every little bit contributes to public opinion. Am I right?
Let's hope so. Yeah, sure.
All right. I'm a little delusional, I admit it, but what the hell. Big news today, by the way, just happens to benefit us and our audience as well. You know, gold has long been the asset governments turn to in times of uncertainty. And that demand has intensified as geopolitical tensions, sanctions, and worries about the global financial order have pushed central banks to rethink how they hold reserves. And Greg, that shift just hit a milestone. Gold has overtaken U.S. Treasury securities as a reserve asset held by central banks worldwide. This is not old news. This is today's news. I don't know why they use one of those photos of Trump allegedly sleeping or blinking, if you want to give him the charitable version of it. But that is today's news, actually.
Is that a British report? Because I'm just questioning the spelling on that.
Oh, yeah. I could have picked anyone. I just picked that one. But that's all the publications are covering this today.
Okay.
I promise. Yes. No, we would never put that unnecessary "you" in there. That would just be wrong. So anyway, this is a silver lining. I don't know if is that a pun intended to call it the war a silver lining, and all this uncertainty that Trump has created has also created a financial opportunity right when we are getting started with our sponsor, Goldco. And you can get all the information at probablecause.gold. We were talking about this the other night when we first got going on our other podcast, The Whiners, with Ryan Milton, who's quite the expert on precious metals. Mm-hmm. Unlike you and I, we aren't quite the experts, but we're learning. What is your take on? You bought some silver, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a jump ball. What I'd been reading recently was that, silver was going to be in real demand, and the price, because of that, was going to hopefully increase over time because of the reliance now on chip making and electric cars, and also all this AI, which is going to require massive amounts of silver and gold to some extent. But that sort of pushed me into the idea that I should expand my portfolio into an area that I've overlooked.
Yeah. Now you, as some of our viewers know, are not only when we refer to you all the time as a former FBI agent and a whistleblower. And you sued the federal government, as a matter of fact, and it's all described in your great book, The Thin Blue Lie, and I recommend that to everyone. And you won a lawsuit, a very healthy award. This was back in 1996, which was $1.5 million. And if you had invested it in gold or silver back then, that would be, by my calculations, worth 90 million billion dollars today. I have no idea what it would be, but you'd be.
Or we could just call it $1 billion. That might be easier.
Yeah, right. Now, I'm not going to ask you how much of that you pocketed, or not pocketed, but saved, is what I'm trying to say. But you're a very prudent, responsible man, so I'm sure you saved a good part of it. So now it's a little late in the game, but you can still put some of that money into precious metals.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's really never too late, because it's going to, I look at it as a very solid investment, and hopefully, it will continue to do well down the road. All the indications seem to be that it's a smart move to go into precious metals because of the reliance on precious metals going forward in the future.
All right, so check it out, folks, at probablecause.gold. All the info is there. This is a very reputable company, and you can call them up, get more info. They'll send you a kit with a bunch of info as well. And yes, you get to physically possess the gold or silver. It's not just going to be some certificate or something and have it be held somewhere else. None of that nonsense.
There's something to be said for tangible wealth.
Absolutely. I wouldn't feel comfortable otherwise. All right, let's take a look at some of the other news stories. E. Jean Carroll is back in the news. There are rumors that the Department of Justice has opened a criminal investigation against her. Rumors. Now, I think you're a very key person because you're familiar with investigations. So I have a question. This is a very elementary question. And basically, I want to know, what is an investigation and what are the different types of investigations? The reason I say that is because I assume that the FBI or the Department of Justice, which oversees other agencies too, are constantly receiving information. And they probably look into it to some degree, to varying degrees is what I mean. So they make a couple of phone calls. That's not an investigation, I assume. What makes something an investigation? What does it mean? So
initially, depending on the nature of the information, it may begin as a preliminary inquiry, a PI. And that is just a title that they give to information that maybe has not been verified, or it's developing, and you take it upon yourself, or it's assigned to you to open up a PI, a preliminary investigation, and you take steps to determine whether there is something there, if there's going to be any meat on the bone. Is there actually a criminal violation here? Is it merely an allegation? Was it just a rumor? An article that came out in a newspaper. So once you conduct your preliminary investigation, you submit it to your supervisor, and at that point, it will either be basically dismissed or dropped, or it will be opened into a full investigation, in which case now you have, the resources and the latitude to pursue it as an official, FBI investigation.
Are there different types of investigation? I mean, is it declared to be an investigation each and every time, or is it a gray area?
It's issued a file number, and it's formally assigned to an agent, and then it's tracked. So now it's something that can be referenced or looked at by any other office in the FBI. So there's an ongoing official record of it. At some point, it could be closed either through an arrest, or it could be closed because there's insufficient information to justify it going forward. But oftentimes they start off as a preliminary investigation, and they are developed into a full investigation. Now, it could go to a grand jury. Now, there's the grand jury investigations where they're presenting witnesses and evidence before a grand jury, a sitting grand jury, or they may just conduct the investigation through the office, and eventually it would result, hopefully, in an arrest warrant that would be submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office and approved by a federal judge or a federal magistrate.
Okay. And again, I always like to, whenever I remember, just for those people who aren't familiar with the case, just briefly let you know that this is, I forget what year exactly, but many years ago, what E. Jean Carroll has alleged.
I think it was the mid-'90s, Jeff. I think it was 95, 96.
A very long time ago. And that's relevant also because of the statute of limitations. So we'll get to that in a moment. But she claims that Donald Trump ran into her in a Bergdorf Goodman, which is a very upscale department store in Manhattan. And he ran into her there, and they got to talking, and it led to him. Well, let me clarify what this is. Let's start by saying sexually assaulting her in a dressing room.
Allegedly, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And he was now in New York, the rape statute is defined as only unwanted, non-consensual penetration with one's penis. And so it's not rape according to the New York statute if somebody uses his finger. And that's what he allegedly did. And so there's a lot of back and forth, depending on if you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, about whether or not he was convicted of raping her. That's what allegedly happened. And it's really, I don't know what happened, but there's not much evidence. I won't say no evidence. I mean, I think the only evidence besides her testimony is she had a friend or two who said, oh yeah, she told them about it back then, something like that. I believe that's the only evidence. But the statute of limitations expired. Again, for those of you who don't know, most of you I'm sure do know, that refers to the deadline by which someone can be prosecuted. Once that date has been reached, no more prosecution. So they changed the statute of limitations in New York, which they did in this other case too, to go after Trump on the the bookkeeping nonsense. So they changed the statute of limitations. The whole reason they have the statute of limitations is because people's memories fade, they get more and more unreliable, witnesses disappear, people die, people move away. It just becomes totally impractical to have a real bona fide trial. So anyway, they did this trial and Trump got convicted. And I think what he got convicted of was defamation, right? He didn't get convicted of the initial charge though, right?
I think he sued him civilly in one, and but there was no criminal conviction, if I recall correctly. And then the remarks that he made about that outcome, she followed up with a defamation lawsuit.
Right. Now, I want to play a clip from our friend Andrew Branca, who's a friend of the show. We've had him on before, and I hope we can get him on again. He made a very good point that it's one of those things where you go, Jesus, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? And it has to do with the fact that she didn't remember, or said she didn't remember, when this thing supposedly happened. And
she's
so,
not even sure on the year, Jeff.
Yeah, right. Not even sure in the year, right. And of course, that, I think to most of us, we think of, well, oh, then if she doesn't remember that, how can we trust her memory about any part of this? But he brought up another point, and I'll let him say it instead of me saying it. This is like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that?
And the last thing I want to talk about here is this E. Jean Carroll not able to remember when this happened. No, I don't remember the date. I don't remember the week. I don't remember the month. I don't remember the season of the year. It might have been 1995. It might have been 1996. I just can't really remember. First of all, it goes to her credibility, obviously. If she can't remember when she was purportedly raped by a billionaire in a department store dressing room, how are we supposed to believe anything she says? But more importantly, the reason they devised this lack of memory is because it strips Trump of his most powerful tool for defending himself against these allegations. Because the most powerful tool would be an alibi defense. Trump was already a billionaire. His days were not lackadaisical. His days were well planned and scheduled and documented. They had been for years. That's part of being a billionaire real estate tycoon. Trump knows where he's been every minute of every day for decades, including in the ambiguous time period in which he was supposed to have raped a woman. If E. Jean Carroll said it happened on this date, Trump could just open up his diary and say, no, I was in Florida. I was someplace else. I have an alibi and I can prove it. Because especially in a case, in a he said, she said case with no corroboration, no independent evidence other than E.G. Carroll's self-serving statements, the most powerful defense would simply be an alibi. I don't have to disprove the merits of what she's saying. I can prove I wasn't there. And if I wasn't there, it obviously didn't happen. The reason E. Jean Carroll cannot remember the day she was raped by a billionaire in Bergdorf Goodman's dressing room is because if she did remember, she would be exposed as having made this story up. That's why.
Well, he's asserting a little bit more certainty than I would, but let me just say that I think it's certainly a reasonable suspicion that it's an intentional ploy. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like that guy as a guest. He's passionate. He's well informed. He's an interesting guy. I hope we get him back.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Jeff, I led a pretty regulated life. But I mean, if somebody said to me, even if they said on this date, back in November of 1995, on the 17th of November, where were you? I mean, if it was on a weekend, I'd probably be like, I'm not quite sure where I was. I mean, I could go back to my place of employment. If it was a work day, I could say, well, definitely during the day I was at this location. But after that, I mean, I would be hard pressed to be able to come up with a location and the reason I was at a certain place. And he's at a complete disadvantage when you can't even pin down the year. I mean, how non-specific can you be if you can't even give somebody the year that it happened?
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be that, in our society, people didn't trust women. They were afraid to accuse anybody of it. They often were embarrassed about their sex lives and with very irrelevant details brought up at trials and so forth and so on. And I think this situation, maybe it's not completely improved, but I think drastically improved, wouldn't you say?
I would, but the thing is, if you are familiar with any of the type of things that she has written in articles and spoken about during interviews, she's no wallflower. I mean, she's not someone who's easily embarrassed or modest, in my opinion. So I find it kind of ironic, that we're going down that road as far as her, her morals and modesty. I don't think she gets a big pass on that,
right.
To be honest with you.
Well, there's a famous or infamous interview she did with Anderson Cooper.
Oh yeah,
on CNN. Let's take a look at that.
You don't feel like a victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Now, a lot of people have mocked her for characterizing rape as sexy, although what she actually said was that it's perceived by many people as sexy. She didn't actually say she thinks it is. So I'm not going to mock her for that. The weird thing, I think, is that she flirted with Anderson Cooper, who's a gay guy.
I was thinking the same thing. I was going to say more outlandish than the remark about rape being sexy was to say that she thought Anderson Cooper was fascinating to talk to.
Yeah. Well, if you stay on my good side, Greg, I actually have an audio clip ready to go for that too.
Okay.
You're fascinating to talk to.
You talked right over it. Hang on.
You're fascinating to talk to.
All right. But I was listening to Andy McCarthy, who's a former federal prosecutor, on his podcast, which I recommend, by the way. It's called The McCarthy Report. And he was talking about this case. He made the point that in criminal trials, the judge always instructs the jury that they should not attach any negative assumption if the accused person chose not to testify. This is like a really big thing in criminal trials. But he said that's not the case in civil trials. The jury can draw negative assumptions, or whatever word you want to use.
Yeah, inference usually, yeah.
Yeah, inference, that's the word. If the accused person didn't testify. And Trump chose not to testify. And he's saying that might have been a mistake, because here they are, the jurors having to show up in court every day and work essentially for free, some sort of weird legalized slave labor, which is our justice system. And the guy who's accused of rape doesn't even show up at the trial. And that might not have sat well with them. What they did see was video recorded deposition that Trump gave. So let's take a look at a couple of clips from that.
She actually indicated that she loved it. Okay, she loved it until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
So, sir, I just want to confirm, it's your testimony that E. Jean Carroll said that she loved being sexually assaulted by you?
Well, based on her interview with Anderson Cooper, I believe that's what took place. We can define that. You'll have to show that. I'm sure you're going to show that. But she was interviewed by Anderson Cooper, and I think she said that rape was sexy, which it's not, by the way. But I think she said that rape was sexy, and she actually said things that were very strange. And then she was a different person after when he said, we'll take a break right now. We're going to take a break right now. He didn't like what she was saying. He was very upset with and then she came back and she was a much different woman in the second half, so to speak.
And so the question I'm asking you is, did she say in that interview that she loved being sexually assaulted by you?
Well, she said something to that effect. I mean, you'll have to take a look at the interview yourself. I believe she said rape was sexy, to which Anderson Cooper is dying. He's saying, let's get to a commercial break immediately. I think you better watch the interview. I'm sure you have, but you better watch the interview.
In the interview, when Ms. Carroll talked about rape being sexy, isn't it true that she said that's a view that many other people hold?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. All I know is I believe she said rape is sexy or something to that effect, but you'll have to watch the interview. It's been a while.
Greg Dillon, is rape sexy? Yes or no? You're under oath.
Of course not.
All right, there you go.
But I have a question for you, Mr. Jeff.
Please, anything. I have an open door policy. No subject is taboo. Fire away, Greg.
She is under investigation, or allegedly under investigation, by the Department of Justice, because during a deposition, my understanding is she lied regarding if anyone was funding her legal costs. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Well, sort of. And that's thanks for bringing me back to that point, which is why I'm bringing up this story now. What's in the news now is that there are rumors that she's under investigation.
Okay.
And that's the number one rumor, that they may be going after her for perjury.
Correct.
Because she said that Reid Hoffman, or she said that nobody funded her legal fees, and then it came out that actually Reid Hoffman had given money, right, but it went to her attorney, so theoretically maybe she didn't know about it, and that's the case. But there's also a rumor that Reid Hoffman is being investigated, maybe for some sort of money laundering situation. But that's why I began by asking you, like, what's an investigation? Do we know for sure when there is one? And the department, let me see if I have it. Somebody from I think it was the Chicago office of the Department of Justice, released a statement saying that there is no, here, let's look at this. Let me just read this, especially for folks who are listening to us on Spotify. And for those of you who watch us every week, if you ever want to download it onto your device, and because I know that Stefan is probably a physical fitness freak. So when you're jogging, Stefan, you can listen to us. Here is Andrew Boutros's quote. He's an attorney with the DOJ in Illinois. In light of widespread reporting and intense media and public interest into the E. Jean Carroll matter in New York, the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office can confirm that it has not opened and has never opened a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll. Any claim to the contrary is categorically false. So, Greg, this was what was on my mind when I'm saying, are there different kinds of investigations? This just could be some tricky wording. It's not a criminal investigation, but it's something else. Is there any other kind of investigation? Or could it be a different office in the DOJ is open investigation? I mean, isn't this something that can just be clarified? And so it's not a rumor. It's either with certainty we know there's an investigation or there isn't. What can you tell us?
Well, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that Boutros might be factually correct, but he may be parsing his words by saying the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office has not opened and has never opened a criminal investigation.
That's what I just said.
That's not saying the U.S. Department of Justice does not have an investigation going on.
Right. That's what I mean.
So he's speaking specifically for the Chicago office, but he's not making a universal statement that there is no Department of Justice investigation. He's only saying that the Chicago office has not opened and has never opened a criminal investigation into her.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But isn't there a way to find out for sure? I mean,
well, I think they would. The question would have to be posed to the Washington D.C., the U.S. Department of Justice. You know, Todd Blanche, Blanchard, Blanche, right? You know, someone from his office would have to be contacted and say, does any U.S. Attorney's Office within the Department of Justice currently have an ongoing criminal investigation into Carroll? Yeah.
Because a whole bunch of anti-Trumpers who always have their hair on fire whenever there's the slightest reason to get indignant and, you know, kind of spew that how dare they attitude that they always have, that it's the worst thing ever, are going crazy over this. Many of them saying like it's the worst example of all his lawfare combined, like the worst. Here's Chris Hayes of MS Now, and he's, you know, doing his drama queen routine.
Donald Trump's Department of Justice is targeting E. Jean Carroll, the former magazine columnist Trump was found liable for sexually abusing in 1996. That's in front of a civil jury. Citing multiple sources familiar with the matter, CNN reports the DOJ has launched a criminal investigation into whether Carroll committed perjury. No criminal investigation or case brought by the Department of Justice against an obvious person that Donald Trump has a vendetta against should be treated at face value to begin with. Like, it's simply not rational. It's not logical. It's like, it's not a good faculty of judgment by anyone. Like, the obvious default that people should have is that it is purely out of spite and vendetta until shown otherwise, right? The rebuttable presumption. And this seems like one of the most aggressive and egregious examples. An 82-year-old woman who said that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her in the Bergdorf Goodman dressing room, who Donald Trump called a liar, who then sued him for defamation for lying about her, and then won. That's who we're talking about, that the Department of Justice apparently wants to criminally prosecute.
That is the way. The hypocrisy here is Carroll targeted Donald Trump because he became president. And no one seemed to have an issue with her recreating memories from the mid-90s only because he's now the sitting president. So why are they in such a ruffle over the fact that she is now subject to an investigation herself?
Well, just the usual reason, because it's Trump.
Correct.
But it's especially ridiculous if, in fact, it's not even happening, right?
Well, that's true, too.
And it appears to be quite possible that it's not even happening.
Could be. Could be. I mean, what they really need to do is not.
These are just media reports, and they're all just echoing each other. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the irony is lost also that she couldn't recall if her legal defense or her legal costs were being paid by an outside party, but she has tremendous recall on something that happened in the mid 1990s.
Yeah. I would think, I mean, I forget what the amount was, but Reed Hoffman's a wealthy guy. I don't think he would have just donated
a significant amount of money, if I recall.
Yeah. I mean, you would be very appreciative of somebody doing that, right? I mean, what kind of a person would just forget about it? And the excuse is, well, he didn't communicate directly with her. That's what the court said. It sounds like another corrupt judge saying that, though. Well, okay, so he communicated with the lawyer, but how could it be that the lawyer didn't tell her? How could it be
especially if the lawyer's not billing her,
yeah,
then I would think her curiosity would be like, how am I supposed to pay for all these attorneys working on this case?
Unless he didn't tell her so he could bill her. Oh no, I don't have any money. I need it from you. That's a whole nother thing, right? All right. Well, on this next story, I think I screwed up because
no, not you.
Yeah. Yes, I warned you before we started that it was not a good day for me today, but we can describe the story. This is this guy, Rick Chow, who was held without bond for 3 years. He's a Chinese gentleman. Where did it happen?
Down south, South Carolina?
Yeah, I think it was South Carolina. You're right. And he thought some 14-year-old kid was shoplifting. Turned out that maybe he wasn't actually shoplifting, but he was like fiddling around with the water bottles, moving them around in the store, something like that. And so the guy chased the owner of the store, and his son chased the kid out of the store and wound up shooting him to death. And the kid had a gun, but there is, I guess one side of the story is, but he wasn't pointing it at him. In fact, he dropped the gun, I guess is what the prosecutor claimed. And so therefore his life wasn't really in jeopardy.
Well,
and
the prosecutor
Mr. Chow said he was trying to protect his son who was closer to him. Go ahead.
Right. And I believe the son had said to the father, he has a gun, and the father was behind the son. And I'm not trying to make defense of the father, but I'm saying
you just say the irrelevant thing. Sure.
He alerted him of the fact that he was armed, and apparently the father claimed he couldn't get a clear look because the son was in between him and the teenager they were chasing.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make a big deal anyway. But I just found the headline. It's just good to sort of help us focus by showing these headlines. This is the story. Doesn't change things drastically now that I found it.
No.
But you said that you wanted to talk about this because to you the interesting thing is that he was held without bond for 3 years and then he was acquitted. So what is it about this that you find interesting?
What I find interesting is how they weren't able to, I mean, let's face it, everyone is supposed to be entitled to a reasonable bond. And the only purpose of the bond is not to punish anyone, but it's to ensure their appearance in court. And having done fugitive work for a number of years, I was always shocked at the way people that were charged with very, very serious crimes were able to somehow navigate the court system and get themselves released on bond, and then abruptly and then suddenly fail to appear. Because they utilized the bondsman, they only had to put up a percentage of the bond, and then they forfeited the bond and absconded. This gentleman, who was no kid and a business owner, I would certainly think that you could create a scenario where he forfeits his passport or surrenders his passport, doesn't forfeit, he surrenders his passport, agrees to wear an ankle monitor, puts up his business and his home as collateral, And now he has really no incentive to flee because he'll bankrupt himself and his family in the process of doing so. There are many, many people that get charged with homicide that put up bonds and get out prior to their trials.
Right. Well, the other thing is,
And Jeff, I'm sorry, just to follow up on that, the rationale that the judge gave conflicts with the conditions of how you can deny someone the bond. The rationale is they pose a threat to the public, but her explanation from the bench was he could have been in danger by the community, and that's not that shouldn't be the reason why he can't make bond, was because the community was going to threaten his life.
right.
She flipped it. He's supposed to be kept in prison because he poses a threat to the community. Her rationale was the community posed a threat to him, which means it doesn't apply for bond.
Well, I think it should be based on, whether you are a risk to the community,
right,
or a flight risk. But I looked it up because of what you said, and it seems to be somewhat based on the severity of the charge, and it often happens just because it's a serious charge like murder, as opposed to making a distinction between one murderer who might be a threat to society versus another one who isn't, just because it's murder. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but this is what I found. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do.
So I think the key question would be, how often are murderers held without bond? I don't know exactly how often, but apparently that's sometimes the case, right?
Well, the thing is, what the court is supposed to do is look at various factors. And one of them is the person a habitual violent felon? Have they been through the system repeatedly for similar violent crimes?
Right.
Not necessarily homicide, but assault.
Right. If he's an elderly guy and he's never done it before, then that's certainly not habitual, right?
Correct. So that's something that should have weighed heavily in his favor to be released.
Right.
His age, his history of no criminal history, his standing in the community, the fact that he owns a business, the fact that he has a family, and I'm scratching my head as to how they could justifiably deny him the opportunity to post bond.
Right. Well, like I said, that's my opinion. Even though it's a very serious charge, if there's no apparent reason to think he's a flight risk or likely to commit other crimes, that even though it's a very serious crime, let him out, because you'll have plenty of time to punish him if he's convicted. So that got me thinking, well, how often are accused murderers convicted? Because obviously some are, right? Mm-hmm. So you might think, oh, he's a murderer, so what? He has to sit in prison for 3 years. But I'm thinking, well, maybe he's not, in which case you can't give him back the 3 years he sat in prison, which I think is what has you agitated. Yeah. So I looked it up, and let me see if you know, or if you want to make a guess, of all people who are arrested for murder, what percentage do you think are convicted versus acquitted?
Well, I just want to ask you a question. You're saying acquitted versus pleading out to a lesser included offense, like manslaughter or something like that.
That's a good question. And I got this statistic from the Bureau of Justice Statistics,
okay,
which is an office in the Department of Justice, but it includes local or state cases also. They compile it. It's not just federal cases. So that distinction wasn't there. So I don't know how to answer.
Okay. Because, I mean, that's not uncommon for someone who is facing a murder charge to.
All right, well, let's put it this way, because they didn't say. Actually, the way it's worded is, of all the individuals arrested and formally charged with murder, approximately blank percent are convicted. So that would mean the other would include acquittals as well as pleas, right?
35%?
are what? Which?
35% are convicted.
70%.
Okay. Well, I was very, very far off on that one.
Yeah. But 30% is a substantial amount also, in the sense that you don't want this 30% of the people sitting in prison for 3 years if they didn't even do it.
Well, here's the thing though, Jeff, and I'm not trying to split hairs here, but it says 70% are convicted, which indicates to me they went to a jury trial. They did not plead out to something. A conviction usually means at the end of a trial. So I'm not quite sure that number is going to be legitimate based on the conversation we're having, because in my experience, many people who were charged with murder will plead to a lesser charge to avoid the time and expense of a trial.
Yeah. What about just the fact that it takes that long? I mean, is it anybody's fault that it takes so long? I mean, because the accused is entitled, according to the U.S. Constitution, to a speedy trial.
Correct.
But in many cases, the delays are attributable to what the defense is doing in terms of how they're arguing and the different kind of things that come up.
Sure, they're going to file motions for discovery. They're going to try to line up expert witnesses. And the thing is this, Jeff, him being incarcerated makes it very, very difficult for his defense attorney to strategize and collaborate with the defendant. If he's out on bond, he can meet several times a week with his attorney. It's much more difficult when the attorney has to go to wherever he's being held, make an appointment, and then show up and meet with him under those conditions.
Right. Which is another statistic I want to see now, is what is the average distance an attorney has to travel to meet with his or her incarcerated client?
Yeah, usually it won't be too far, because they're not sent to a prison at that point. They're usually held in a jail, because it is pre-trial detention. So a jail is usually the place where where they're held, and there's a lot more jails within a state than prisons.
Yeah. So not a long distance, but it could still kill your day,
Well,
like I'm thinking where I've lived in Los Angeles, if the attorney lives out in the suburbs and has to drive to downtown Los Angeles and sit in that traffic 2 times, it kills the whole day.
Well, plus when you get there, you're going to park your car, you're going to be searched, you're going to go through, whatever paperwork you have to fill out, and then they're going to have to bring the person down, and then you get so much time to meet with them. So yeah, it has a big impact on his ability to prepare a defense. Sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think you made a good point. That's one more reason that maybe the court should be a little bit more liberal about granting a bond, because you got to meet with your attorney.
Right. But the thing is, there has to be the process has to be followed. I mean, I don't understand how someone with his standing would be held without bond for that long a period of time. I mean, there's something very, very wrong with that. They should have been able to, like I said, he hands in his passport, he goes on electronic ankle monitor, he has to report and see the court every 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, so they know he's there, and put up a substantial amount of property and money to guarantee that he would not want to flee.
Right. Well, I agree with you. The only thing I'm not so sure you're right about, and I don't even know that you've been that specific about it, is how rare this is. I mean, the criteria that you're espousing, I agree with.
Okay.
I mean, I would just be a little bit more outraged if it's rare. If it's common, it doesn't make it right, but it means, there wasn't an unusual injustice. So maybe when we have some attorneys who may be more familiar with this in future episodes, let's try to get an answer to that.
Well, I think they're going to be flabbergasted that he was able to spend 3 years. And his attorney says it was practically in solitary confinement, which is very, very difficult time.
Helen's busting her chops.
Just have fun. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Oh, here's a story that we discussed on the Whiners last week, and I wanted to talk to you about it because I looked into it a little bit, and there's a police element that sometimes come into play. This is a story about a guy who took a Waymo to the airport, the San Jose, California airport, gets out of the car, tries to open his trunk to take his luggage out, but the trunk not only wouldn't open, but the car just took off. Let's take a look at this news report.
11, not an ideal situation. Imagine you're about to leave for a business trip, but when your Waymo drops you off at the airport, that Waymo takes off with your luggage. A South Bay man is not happy with how Waymo is trying to resolve this situation. Let's bring in NBC's Alyssa Gord. This is kind of a sign of the times, Alyssa.
Yeah, Raj, he actually emailed us when he said he wasn't getting anywhere with Waymo's customer service. He doesn't think that it should cost him money or time to get his stuff back.
On Monday, Jin took his first ever ride in a driverless vehicle, a Waymo, from his home in Sunnyvale to the San Jose Mineta Airport. He was going on a business trip.
Honestly, I was very excited about Waymo, the automotive's driving.
He says the drive was smooth, but when he got out of the car and went to the trunk to grab his luggage, he says the Waymo took off before he could.
I pressed the trunk open button, try to get my luggage, but it doesn't do anything, and it drove away immediately.
Jin says he immediately called Waymo customer service, but was told Waymo couldn't turn the vehicle back around. So Jin flew to San Diego with no suitcase, no change of clothes, and no work notes. Later that day, Waymo found his luggage. A rep told him either Jin could pay to have his stuff shipped back to him, or Waymo could cover 2 free rides intended to get him to and from the Waymo yard to get his stuff.
This sounds terrible. It doesn't make any sense at all because it's not my mistake.
Jin didn't feel it was fair for him to pay for the shipping nor take the 2+ hour round trip to San Francisco. So he contacted us. We reached out to Waymo for comment, but have not yet received a statement. We went to Waymo's website in search of information. Under the lost and found portion, Waymo says it is not responsible for items left behind in the vehicle after a trip ends. But Jin says he didn't lose his stuff.
And I already told them very clear it's not lost and found, right? I pressed the trunk open button, but it's just not functional.
Back in November.
All right, I'm on an anti-Waymo crusade. I just think that's, mistakes happen, but when they happen, you got to do the right thing. And I find this infuriating that this major market news station couldn't even get a response out of them. This happened about a month ago, and I've been checking online. There's no follow-up. They've never explained it. I spent a little time this week contacting Waymo, no response.
Interesting.
And so I'm very happy to spread a little negative publicity to these people. You got to do the right thing when something like this happens.
Of course. I mean, when the airlines screw up your luggage, they have it delivered to your home.
Oh yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, so this got me thinking, well, what do the police do when they want to pull over a Waymo, but there's no driver? And it turns out they have some way of communicating with Waymo.
Okay.
But then it got me thinking, well, maybe this guy could have gotten help by contacting the police, either because maybe they would have facilitated communication quicker, or maybe to stop the vehicle. Maybe it could be, because we had in a previous episode, we were talking about the difference between a civil matter and a police matter. It was somebody was complaining about something that happened with a food truck, and they called the police. And I'm like, that's a civil matter. Don't call the police for that. So I'm not too quick to call the police normally, but I'm thinking, well, maybe in this case, because the car is driving on public roads, you could arguably call it an emergency. Could you possibly get the police to track down the Waymo or in some way help? You're shaking your head no.
Property versus person, right? If the Waymo drove off with your 4-year-old in the back seat, you call the police. If they drive off with your luggage, you call the company. That's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm an attorney or anything like that, but I mean, I would make the distinction between a person and property, right? There's no 911 urgency to your luggage being driven off unless it was being stolen by another person, me, and then obviously that would be different. But if it's going to be something under these circumstances, I don't think the police are going to give you the response that you're expecting.
Yeah. I'm just frustrated. I feel for the guy, you know.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking, Jeff, like when the police officers stand in the fire lane at these airports and keep telling people you can't park here, drop off your person and get going. What do they do with the Waymo? There's nobody to tell them you can't park here, right?
Well, the Waymo probably doesn't stay there, as we just saw. The Waymo just takes off, so they don't have to worry about that.
Well, I guess, like, what about like when the Waymo was going to pick someone up? I mean, what happens then? I've never used one, so I don't have any
Oh, I
basis
see what you mean.
But like if they pull up to pick up a passenger and the passenger is taking their time getting there, and the police officer's like, you can't park here, he can't tell anyone to move the vehicle, right?
That's a good question, but that situation obviously happened so much they must have figured out a way to deal with that.
Okay.
Like the Waymo just circles until the passenger says, "I'm outside," something like that.
Okay, could be. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know enough about him. But
well, it's less annoying for the Waymo to keep circling, because the Waymo is just a car. It's not a person being annoyed, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's my guess. That's my very unsophisticated guess. All right, I got some videos that I wanted to talk to you about. We've been at this for an hour. I would love to get to them. Maybe we can save that New Haven story.
Sure. Yeah. Let's table that one.
All right. Let's see. All right. Here is just a quickie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to use this to segue into another thought I had.
And that breaking news, we begin with the dramatic end to a standoff in the Dakota neighborhood of Union City within just the past hour. Look at that canine. Police took a person into custody after police canine that you see right there tackled that man. The dog was on the person for about 20 seconds before officers surrounded that suspect and put him on a stretcher.
Now, before the canine attack, that person was talking with the police officers who were surrounding him, apparently refusing to surrender. Police appeared to fire some kind of non-lethal projectile at that person in the moments before the dog attacked.
And we are still working to find out what led up to the standoff, but officers spent a couple of hours surrounding the person as he sat in the driver's seat of an SUV, eventually just sandwiched between two armored vehicles. The person appeared to nearly get out of the vehicle a number of times before they finally did get out.
All right. And we've talked about canines before, and we had your great canine remark in the opening video that Peter Tickton is going to say. But the reason I wanted to show this is because what popped into my mind as I was watching it was last week's episode of Probable Cause. That's our show, Greg, Probable Cause, as you probably know. And we were talking about this incident in Hartford, Connecticut, with a mentally disturbed guy named Stevie Jones. And the cops surrounded him. They were talking to him for a while. And then another cop showed up after the incident had been going on for a few minutes. And he wound up fatally shooting Stevie Jones. So I'm thinking, we were talking about like what else could have been done? Shoot him in the leg? No, this, that, what, you don't want an unnecessary fatality. And I'm like, we didn't even think of a dog. We just saw the dog do what the dog did. Wouldn't a dog like what we just saw have been the best way to take care of Stevie Jones in Hartford?
The dog handler obviously is attached with the dog. It's a work animal. It's a service dog, but you don't want to sacrifice the dog when you know the person has a knife, or a gun. Better the dog is injured or killed than obviously a police officer. I'm not quite sure how the optics would have looked, putting a dog onto someone that's suffering from mental illness. I think they would have gotten a lot of flack for that too. If Jones had decided to use the knife against the dog, I can almost guarantee you the outcome would have been the same. He would have gotten shot by police officers that were there, because the police officers do not take lightly a police dog being stabbed or shot. So I think, in retrospect, they should have used the beanbag round or pepper ball rounds from distance. That seems to be the next option prior to a firearm being used. I don't know if the dog would have been the better option, better than shooting him, but that's no guarantee he wouldn't have been shot anyway if he tried to stab the dog.
Right. All right. Well, it's not necessarily going to go exactly the same way every time, but I'm listening to what you said. You're making sense. On the other hand, I'm wondering what are the chances of the dog being stabbed? Because it looked like the dog is so damn agile.
Yeah.
That I
Plus
wouldn't
the dogs
necessarily.
are trained to they use sleeves when they train the dog, so they're going to try to grab an arm. They won't go for the face or the neck. They're trained to go for a leg or an arm. So you would hope that the dog would be so fast and aggressive that it would overwhelm the resistance.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Look what happened there. You see, so what I'm suggesting is that the odds of the dog being stabbed might be so low that that might be the best bet.
Right, and oftentimes the dogs today now wear a protective body armor made for them.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that makes sense.
The head's not protected, but it basically covers their torso. Well,
that makes it. You just made my argument even stronger. You certainly don't want the dog to be stabbed in the face or head, but that really reduces the potential target area.
It does.
Did this even come up amongst everybody who's talking about the Stevie Jones case? I mean,
haven't heard it mentioned yet. And I know that Hartford had canines at one time because I'm friends with a sergeant that used to have a canine when he was with Hartford. I don't know what their policy is now. I mean, they may only have one per shift. Hartford, if the dog was already assigned somewhere else or was too far away to respond in a timely manner.
Well, sure, but if the professional assessment is that dogs are effective in this type of situation, then get more dogs. That's a cost that's certainly worth spending money on, as opposed to people dying, and all this equipment they have costs money. So.
You're right, but the thing is, it's a lot more cost effective to put a beanbag. Beanbag rounds with a supervisor, because they don't get tied up on calls as a rule. They tend to be more mobile and more readily available. I would have thought the smartest thing would have been to have someone, either a SWAT team member or a supervisor that has beanbag rounds, respond there and use that as your next escalation of force before it got to that point where it did.
Yeah. All right. Well, those of you who think I'm a bootlicker, here I am taking a very humane approach, making the top priority, let's not kill somebody unnecessarily.
Sure. Yep.
Am I a wonderful person or what?
Absolutely.
You're fascinating to talk to.
All right, let's look at another video.
That's creepy, by the way.
I know it is. That's what makes it a good clip.
I'll be returning back to Newark because we have one passenger that seems to be making a funny joke that isn't so funny, and it's going to be compromising the safety of this flight. We're going to be returning back to Newark at this time. Unfortunately, because of one person who doesn't want to comply with the instructions, and because of the foolishness of this one person that wants to make a joke, and it's not funny, and it's compromising the integrity and the safety of not only his crew but all the other passengers. So at this time, unfortunately, we're going to be making our return back to Newark. It's going to be a little over an hour, and we will address the passenger, and the federal agents will be coming on board, and they will be doing a search for the person that has thought that this is funny, and which is a very serious issue, and we're not going to be taking this very lightly.
All right. Before I ask you to comment on that, let me just say that was a flight from Newark, New Jersey to Spain. And I'm not sure how far out they were, but they went back.
It's not like an hour, because I thought he said it'd be an hour return.
Okay, an hour return, and then whatever amount of time it took to clear the plane and take the person off, and then they got a different flight crew and eventually flew off to Spain. So that's a pretty substantial inconvenience. So just wanted to set the stage with the pertinent details. My question for you, Greg, may I call you Greg? Do I know you well enough? My question for you, as opposed to Jaime or Sammy or Louis. My question for you is, what do you think of the announcement the pilot made?
A little wordy. I think that could have been condensed into a much shorter, simpler statement instead of trying to beat all around the bush to explain every single detail of what was going through his mind.
Well, also a little bit guilty in the same way that Judge was. It wasn't all that hostile, but he was kind of like scolding the passenger a little bit too much. I thought, somebody thought something was funny. It's not really funny.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the pilots usually are very good at providing information in a very condensed version. This person obviously lacks that talent to do the same.
Yeah. The passengers deserve to be notified that they're returning to the airport, although I wonder whether or not any of them would have realized it before the plane started descending. Because once you're over the water and you're up in the air, I don't know if you would realize that the plane turned around. It's not like you look out the window and you see, oh, that's, is that the US or is that Europe? So he maybe could have waited a little bit is one thought I had until the plane was descending. And also just said something very simple, like there's a security problem. And I think it would be important to say not a mechanical problem, because you wouldn't want the passengers to panic.
Correct. Well, as it was starting to veer on, I think, creating panic because the explanation was getting, longer and more confusing as it was going on. So I don't think he was doing the passengers a service by doing that.
And it could provoke the naughty passenger to start chastising him and create some kind of situation between the passengers and that guy or something.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, he was sort of creating an environment for things to deteriorate.
So I read about it. So the not so funny joke or whatever is passengers you're not supposed to use, probably everybody but me knows this. You're not supposed to use Bluetooth on planes. Is that the deal? You're supposed to be wired?
Well, I think you're supposed to switch over to airplane mode on your phone, which everyone has.
Airplane mode, and then you can use Bluetooth?
Oh, I don't know about that at that point, no.
All right, well, whatever. They're saying in this article I read that they were told not to use Bluetooth, and this guy was using Bluetooth, and they were able to see the name of his device, and the name of his device was Bomb.
Oh, because I was thinking in my mind, he must have made some joke about using the word bomb in there, and that's all it would usually take to trigger that kind of a response.
Yeah, but that's very weird. Like, I don't know that somebody would do that thinking that the people on the plane are going to read the name of your device. Would you assume that? No,
unless he was someone with experience as a, I don't know, steward, stewardess, someone that had inside knowledge of what they're able to see and access, then maybe he thought that was a clever ha-ha. But I would never think of doing something like that because I wouldn't think that they would be able to even see it.
All right. So this made me recall something I did on a plane that freaked them out. Now, you have to keep in mind that I did this many years ago. This was before 9/11. I stress pre 9/11 because everybody got a lot more uptight after 9/11.
Oh yeah.
Okay? All right.
There's no wiggle room after that.
Right. So this before. So many years ago, I forgot the exact row. It doesn't matter. But I walked back. Maybe it was row 25. And I was among the first passengers who got on. It wasn't a full plane yet. And I go to the overhead compartment to put my luggage in, and I see there's a bullhorn there. So I take the bullhorn out and I talk into it. And I say, can I have a margarita in row 25? That's what I did.
Was this after having a margarita in row 25? You were on that?
Well, funny you should say that because no, it wasn't. But anyway, I was immediately encircled. Is that a word? Encircled or circled? I think encircled by several flight attendants, and they were so angry and super serious that it was like a big security risk and blah 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 blah. And they didn't kick me off, but they refused to serve me alcohol on the flight. This is when, one of those flights in the old days when you could order drinks.
Probably not the worst outcome under the circumstances.
No, I guess not. I still say it was funny though. And it wasn't that stupid because you got to remember it wasn't the 9/11.
Jeff, we got to work on that sense of humor of yours just a little bit.
Oh yeah, did I tell you about the imaginary racism thing that happened to me? I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, let's table that also.
Table it, exactly. All right, let's see if we can get a couple more in here. Here's one. Remain calm. I'm looking. I will find it. I will find it. I will find it. What? Oh, there it is. Here we go.
Watch his hand! Watch your fucking hand! Give me! I got him! Get off his hand! Get off his hand! Stop moving! Stop! No, please, take it easy.
All right, I don't think anything else interesting happens. What'd you think of that initial takedown?
Well, again, we're only seeing the end result. We don't know why he was being pursued. We don't know how long the pursuit went. We don't know what kind of driving the person was engaged in prior to that. So, it might have been a little over the top or it might have been completely appropriate. It depends on the circumstances leading up to it.
Now, are you assuming it was intentional? It looked intentional to me.
Yeah, I think it probably was.
So
he's just nudging him. He wasn't running him over. He was just nudging him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're most likely going to fall over, which
hopefully
is quite dangerous. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's your option. If you pull over, you're not going to risk getting knocked off your bike.
That's true. The comment, I think this was on Facebook. I found this. The comments were mocking this guy because he was taken down by a cop in a man bun. Did you notice that?
No.
How many cops have man buns? Let me see if it comes on.
You don't have a percentage lined up for me on that one, Jeff?
I'm going to contact the Bureau of Statistics or whatever the office is called. It's definitely very important to.
3% of all male police officers sport a man bun.
There he is. Hold on. That guy there. See the man there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that a good look for a cop? Or for anybody?
I was going to say, do we have to limit it to police?
Right. All right. Thank you, Facebook. All right, let's see what else we have here.
We did have a case one time in Branford where there was a dirt bike rider back when in the days when this was heavily frowned upon, and we didn't tolerate, large numbers of these types of bikes to drive through the town with impunity. And he wouldn't pull over, and the officer ended up getting so close behind him that his bumper of the car actually went over the rear tire of the dirt bike and stopped the dirt bike completely upright with the person still on the bike, unable to go any further.
That is a great move.
Right? I thought it was just perfect the way it ended up.
That's like the precursor to the grappler. Is that what it's called?
Right, exactly. That was the non-grappler grappler.
That maybe gave birth to the All right, we got one or two more here. Now, this is an interesting one. Somebody got pulled over for some kind of minor traffic violation. And I might as well describe it before you see it in this case.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think it's like it'll just lack context. So it was a father and his son in the car, and they somehow got into a conversation, and the kid said, let's have a foot race, and if I beat you, you don't write a ticket. And the cop made this deal with him. So here's the race. You got that so far?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Not that it's so complicated. Sorry to insult you.
No, it's okay.
All right. All right. And the result of the race is the cop won, but he didn't write a ticket anyway. The deal was
probably too out of breath to write the ticket afterwards.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, if it's a minor violation, because sometimes if things are minor, cops don't give tickets anyway, they just give warnings. So I kind of like, assuming that it was minor, that they turned a negative into a positive, created a nice little, relationship, a reputation, a memory. Yeah, memory, that's the word. What do you think? You ever do anything like that?
No.
You're not embracing this idea like I am. I'm detecting disapproval from you.
Well, I mean, I don't know how appropriate it is. I mean, not to be stodgy about it, but if there's a minor violation, your option is you can give a verbal warning. You can give a written warning. I don't know if challenging someone to a foot race is the most sensible option there.
You must have seen this video of somebody complaining about kids playing basketball in the street, and they call the cops, and the cops wind up playing basketball with them. And then the next day they come back with Shaq O'Neal.
Oh, okay. I've heard of this one. I never saw it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't.
Because I think he's like a not a police cadet, but isn't he like an auxiliary officer or something?
Maybe that's why it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he starts, he plays with them, and then he says, listen to your parents, and he's like,
no, that's great. I think it's
that's
perfect.
another example of turning a negative into a positive, right?
Yeah, that one I think is a little bit more appropriate than getting out and running. I mean, if God forbid the guy pulled a hamstring or fell down, it's like, now what are you going to do? You're going to put in a workers' compensation report because you did something kind of silly? I don't know.
Right. And then I've seen cops dancing too. You've seen those videos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Whatever.
You're not big on dancing cops.
No, I'm not really. I think you can make connections with people without having to embarrass yourself in public. Even if you're a good dancer, I just don't think it's necessarily appropriate, but that's me. I'm old school.
All right. Excuse me. All right. We have one more. I think we might have addressed this issue before with a different video of what are you allowed to do or not allowed to do if people are blocking traffic. Now, my sentiment is with the driver, But what about the law? What is the driver's obligation in a situation like this?
Well, you were supposed to grant pedestrians the right of way, regardless if it's a crosswalk or an intersection.
Well, I'm a former traffic school instructor. I actually know the precise wording.
Okay.
You're supposed to exercise due care.
Okay.
So in this case, the driver has the right of way. So people,
True,
it's sort of
legally
a
he does, yeah.
It's a misnomer to say the pedestrian always has the right of way.
Correct.
I
agree.
They don't. Yeah, the driver has the right, but has the obligation to exercise due care.
Okay.
So the argument that I would make, and it might be the truth, or I might lie and pretend it's the truth, which I do every so often, but only on even numbered or odd numbered days, no other time, is I was afraid of being attacked. Because I've seen other incidents where the protesters start jumping on the car and trying to
break the window, try to open the doors. Yep.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, you can make that argument. That the video is going to give someone a better idea if you legitimately felt like your life was in danger, or you were sort of aggressively driving through the protesters. Now, the protesters, I guess, were smart enough to be in a crosswalk, which I guess gives them some legal standing to a degree, but not really, because they're obviously trying to obstruct traffic.
Right. And of course, the rate of speed is a factor too.
Sure.
I mean, if you're going very, 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 very slowly, then you can just kind of push them away as opposed to making contact with them in the way that might injure them. So I think maybe this driver could have slowed down slightly. What do you think?
Yeah. No, he
kind of borderline there, right? On that issue.
Yeah. So someone could have fallen backwards and fractured their skull or something. I mean, the risk was there, and it looks like nothing really bad happened, but certainly you can't predict how the person's going to fall off the car when you speed up like that.
All right, let's remind folks that they can get Greg's book at our website, which is ustourofduty.org. The Thin Blue Lie. You can read all about why he won $1.5 million when he sued the FBI. Oh no, settled. What?
No.
What did I say wrong?
Well, I never sued the federal government. I sued the chief state attorney's office in Connecticut.
Okay, but that's a federal agency, though, no? Right?
No.
Oh,
the chief state's attorney's office in Connecticut.
Oh, all right. But it was in federal court?
Yes.
I knew the word federal was part of this. Okay. Just let me go for hours, and I'll eventually say something that's remotely correct. All right. There you go. And anyway, you can read about why he settled for so much and is now putting his money into precious metals. And you should do the same at probablecause.gold. That address again is probablecause.gold.
Very clever how they were able to use the gold instead of the .com.
Guess whose idea that was?
Yours.
America's sweetheart. There are other podcasters, I think, for the most part, are .com. So that's the thing with URLs, domains, whatever you want to call them nowadays when you're setting up a website.
Mm-hmm.
All the good ones are gone.
Yep.
So you have to either get very creative or use a different domain. And I thought in this case, because usually you want .com no matter what, like in general, because people just don't remember other stuff. But I thought in this case it might work. .gold.
I agree.
All right. We'll check our sales later and see. All right, Greg, thank you very much. Thanks to our beloved audience. Anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
No, but I appreciate you doing the research and homework and having all those video clips and photographs.
Oh, I got one more. You want to see another clip of Trump in his deposition?
Yeesh. I never saw that before, honestly.
Take a look. Sit back. Buckle up.
This is the former president of the United States answering questions in a deposition about a rape he insists he never committed, saying of his accuser, E. Jean Carroll, "She's not my type."
I take it, sir, that you stand by that statement today?
Yes, I do.
Donald Trump shown this photo the moment he met Carroll in the late 1980s.
You have in front of you a black and white photograph that we've marked as DJT23.
When asked to identify the woman in the picture, Trump mistakes Carroll for his ex-wife, Marla Maples.
It's Marla.
You're saying Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla. Yeah, that's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here.
Carroll.
Oh,
The person you just pointed to was
I
E. Jean
see.
Carroll.
Trump continues to insist he didn't rape Carroll because of the way she looks, even after he confused her for his ex-wife. So her lawyer following up with this question.
The only difference between me and other people is I'm honest. She's not my type.
I take it the 3 women you've married are all your type.
Yeah.
Trump doubling down.
She's accusing me of rape. A woman that I have no idea who she is. It came out of the blue. She's accusing me of rape, of raping her. The worst thing you can do, the worst charge, and it never took place. And I will tell you, I made that statement and I said, well, it's politically incorrect. She's not my type. And that's 100% true. She's not my type.
So that's another moment that didn't go well for him. Not my type. Well, your wife was your type, and you thought that was your
Yeah,
wife.
I've never seen
Yeah.
that, Jeff.
Yeah.
I don't understand how I missed that.
I don't know. Well, it happened a long time ago, and not everybody digs up the good stuff like your esteemed partner, Citizen Jeff.
Okay.
So,
Good job.
there you have it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the acknowledgement. I get it. I get so little acknowledgement. I love it when it happens. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on what's today? Tuesday, right? And then Ask the Inspectors on hiatus for the month of June. We'll be back sometime in July, and we'll be on this Thursday night at 7 Eastern Time with the Whiners, and our guest will be Matt Ho. He's great. Take care, everybody.
Good night.